tears, like crying, I can't take these lies anymore. And I was literally begging for truth, truth, and nothing but truth. How would you feel if you were never born? Here, my heart wants to jump out, and it's like heat and cold and heat and cold, and something's crawling up my spine, and I'm like terrified, and I can't stop it. Like Kali was chopping all heads of all other desires, like out of my life to just keep this one desire in place. The realization was so clear, like it's always here. Like, oh, I came back to square zero, where all the fears, all the traumas, all the shit that I was running away from, and initially, I was like, oh, okay. And when you get out of that bubble, all of a sudden you go like, oh shit, oh wow, what a ride. What a ride.
And today I'm chatting to a wonderful guest. Her name is Alina Panteleev. And if I spoil the pronunciation, then please correct me.
It's all good. Panteleev, but everyone,
Panteleev.
Panteleev, yeah.
Yeah. I knew I was not going to nail it, but I tried.
Nobody does, so it's okay.
I'm so curious about your journey because we've met through a kind of shared interest in embodied awakening, basically. We didn't actually get a chance to talk about like what you've been through, so I just know kind of like bits and pieces, and so I'm so glad that today we can sit down and actually hear your story and to hear how you even got on this exploration of awakening in the first place, and then what brought you to the embodiment part and what that actually even means and looks like in your life. So are you happy to start with like basically what's the journey been like, and what was like to be Alina when you were growing up?
Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, it's a wonderful opportunity to also connect on a more personal level. Because I'm connecting with your story through your book, so I'll share a little bit of mine. Yeah, and that's been fantastic read for sure. And so, okay, what was it like to be Alina? Oh my gosh, I was growing up in Soviet Ukraine in USSR back in the day. And so back in the day, I would remember my childhood as being amazing because technology was not there. We're mostly outside. And so that was the really beautiful part of it. But um, interestingly enough, I was also growing up in poverty. Not that I knew it, because there was nothing else to compare to. But it was definitely more taking on the programs later on that I found out from my parents kind of standing with that ticket to get a pack of sugar once a month and all these other elements that kind of created that more rigid regime. I think one big part that I didn't even know for years until I started the whole embodiment journey, but I will definitely put the emphasis on it right now. So when I was 6 years old, I was sent to this communist sleepaway camp. And so I feel there's a lot that happened there later on, looking at internal stuff and deprogramming some of that. It was basically, there was a traumatic, humiliating event that happened when I was 6 years old. And it felt like I almost like swallowed my voice and was not able to speak or be myself anymore after that. But little did I know, childhood has its beauty as well. And we kind of override some of these and repress these elements about ourselves very deeply. So I grew up with a father that was an alcoholic, musician, and at the same time, like, me and my father had a beautiful relationship. I had an older brother, and my mom was very, very busy because she had to work and provide for all of us. So she was mostly absent. And when she was present, she was really angry. So I was growing up until I guess 10 years old, really, really afraid or almost terrified of my mom. Yeah. So that's why like that element, even that happened as a 6-year-old and a little bit later as a 9-year-old. kind of just repressed and suppressed because I was not able to, there was no one there really to go into those details. And part of just a normal upbringing, I'll probably add those last few details to the little Alina. It was when actually there was a practice in USSR in the 80s when I was born, is to separate the babies from their parents, from their mother. So basically for the first 3 days, I remember my mom always telling me the stories like, I didn't know how you looked. I didn't know if you had 5 fingers, if you had all the toes. I was just like constantly asking, how do you look? And they were like, we were just separated for 3 days to give apparently our mothers a rest. Like, whoa, that's why I was like craving all my life this deep, deep, deep connection to the mother energy. And that eventually developed into the seeking energy that kind of took that shape. So those was kind of the elements of the harsh environment where we were growing up. So there was amazing positive things about it that allowed us to be playful, to be outside, to climb trees, and just to just be very, very creative. Almost we would call it these days Waldorf education, where you're just like, playing this with one doll that you have and making clothes for it and knitting and crocheting and all those things, which is amazing. And I feel right now, looking at the whole brain living, it's just like, okay, I have that part very developed, and I'm really, really grateful for that. But there's also so much repressed. So that was kind of the USSR days. I don't know if you want me to continue.
I can. Oh yeah, of course, I wanted to continue, but I just can't help. I can't help just seeing the similarities, because I still remember, the queues in shops for like things when there was like literally nothing in shops. There was nothing colorful. Like we were literally collecting as kids wrapping papers from things from abroad.
Yeah, like
Right?
the Donald Duck gums. There was these
The
gums.
Donald Duck gums was like the
Oh my God.
stories, with the stories. Yeah. Oh my God.
The
And to like
stories and
eat,
stuff.
to get to eat like Snickers bar was like this major event. And it usually only happened like at Christmas. And,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
oranges were only available at
Oranges
Christmas, which
only
is
on
why,
Christmas. The
don't
smell
you,
of
the
oranges.
smell of oranges at Christmas. Oh my God. I can
Yeah,
still remember that. It was just such a
yeah,
event, but I can relate to the playing outside, despite the turmoil at home, because my father was also an alcoholic.
yeah,
And there was like nothing stable, growing up,
yeah,
just coming from that sort of unpredictability of what's gonna happen, next, and sort of being on alert, as you know what that's like. So I just can't help but just like see so many similarities, and I can so relate to that.
all of a sudden, from one day to another, I find out that I'm Jewish, because we are obviously practicing no religion, nothing, no spirituality. And we leave next day to Israel. And I guess it was at 1990 when the borders actually opened up. So we moved. And interestingly enough, it was the time like 2-3 days later, it was the Cold War with Iraq, and there was all these bombing happening, and we're going to school with like gas masks and stuff like that. Anyway, it was like, not that I knew, but I guess I found a way to cope. My mom had to work full time. Father was completely already not there. It was my grandmother who immediately had a heart attack, and she survived. But it's just like one thing after another. And of course, all this like supermarkets full of food. I was just like, oh my God, like all these yogurts, we were like,
Right?
like this, buffled with all the colors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so all of that, and like in retrospect, right, when I looked at it, I found basically a coping mechanism. And one of the coping mechanisms for me was tennis courts were built in our neighborhood in Tel Aviv. So I signed myself up and basically started going there on my own, and really, really advancing very, very fast, competing and just winning a lot. And by age of 13 was kind of like very well ranked in Israel. But my mom never saw me play. She was just always so busy. So it was just like became very, very independent, very, very fast, just kind of had to. And looking back, I'm like so, so extremely grateful that that was my, coping strategy. But nevertheless, right, the time arrived when you become a teenager and that becomes not enough. No guidance, my grandmother there just to prepare food. My mom is absent and working. My brother, very toxic and always kind of with poisoning kind of more language. When we were growing up, of course, is different right now. I grew up and we all grew up. Um, but I think like with the first elements, one element that I remember, maybe that was an initial spark, I would say of remembrance. And it was, I think I was like 9 or maybe 8. Me and my brother, that was back in USSR. Me and my brother were asking each other like these impossible questions. Like I would even call them now koans. And we would need to find, an answer. Like what would happen if da 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 when this and this happened. And I remember this one question. I came up with it. I asked him, and he said whatever. I don't remember. But then for me, it was something that I pondered over and over and over, and I could not understand what was going on, but I could definitely feel the the answer to that. And the question was, what? How would you feel if you were never born? And I was like, and I would like sit
Wow.
with it. And I would like sit with it and feel into it. How would I feel if I was never born? What would it feel like? And I could never get to not existing. I could never get to it. And like even that like would immediately like put me like into this kind of remembrance of constantly existing. I think that was like the first kind of glimpse. So there was something always there. And always my mom told me, oh, you were the quietest. Nobody even knew you existed when you were born because you were just so quiet, so quiet. And so something was already there. And so the second kind of, I guess the accumulation of absence, teenage years, moving around because we moved to another town, another school, unfortunate, kind of being in love with the boy and doing more than kissing all of a sudden got me labeled to, a Russian slut, whatever, it's like, ta-da.
Yeah.
And so starting like all of that starting to accumulate and I'm like escaping school at that time, just going to a plaza instead to hang out and just telling my parents going to school. So I was like really school was the best, very how would I say terrifying experience for me. So tennis continued to be my kind of outlet for sure. But right there, I probably already was internally looking for something. And what interestingly enough, we didn't have religion, although we were living in Israel. The only thing we were celebrating is New Year's. And but then I don't know even how there is this Russian, it still exists, but there's this Russian children's Bible that is with like drawings, beautiful drawings, like really artistic, like almost hand drawn, every single story within that Bible. And it somehow was in our house. I don't know, maybe somebody brought it. I don't know how it ended up, but all of a sudden it gets into my hands. And by then, like I'm 14. And it was actually the first book because there's so many books that my parents tried to hammer into me, but like, I don't know, it just didn't, nothing resonated. I'd never continued reading. I never really picked up actually reading up until that book. It was the first book I read cover to cover. And I was just like so amazed. I'm like, there it is. This is the way I know the world. This is the message that this is my heart. He speaks exactly to what I experienced, like about this madness going on and people hating each other. And, like just really this intense violence that's going on. But here it is. His message is what I know is true. And all of a sudden, I became like just this, I don't know, a worshiper of Christ or something like that. In Israel, there's no churches, nothing.
Yes.
Like I'm alone in this
So
journey.
not Jewish of you.
Yeah, totally, totally. Tell me about it. Oh, and then we're moving again. We're moving to Canada, another immigration, other languages, other schools. So it's basically never had any kind of roots. So I was craving, I guess, something, but my mom again was obviously busy. And my brother was even more suffering and poisoning. And so therefore,
Mm-hmm.
like our relationship was like, well, I couldn't bring any friends or anything to the house. And I started like just going to the church for like a year. I became like my 15 years old. My nickname was Angel. And yeah. And anyway, so that's that chapter of the story before I went to hell at sweet 16. Okay. So and then at 16, well, there was some betrayal from anyway, a relationship that I was in with my best friend, and then I'm ending up celebrating 8th of March with some of my girlfriends from school at this house with lots of Russian guys, much older, some of them 20, 21, and so on, and even older. I'm 16 at that time, or 15 or 16. Anyway, all that to say, anyway, so I meet this criminal, very heart-centered, but very messed up people, Russian speaking. They call them the Russian mafia in Montreal, but not at all. They're just like, you know, but they were doing a lot of stuff like stealing stuff, emptying Eden centers and other things to just sell and survive. They're kind of in this immigrant survival mode and careless. And so before I even started smoking cigarettes, I started smoking joints and drinking vodka, passed out, and all these kind of cocaine and what have you, like all of that, like flooded to numb the whole thing out of my system. And the numbing myself came from the fact that I was so socially awkward. One on one, I would be okay. But when in groups of people, that's why school was like, I don't know, was it trauma from school? Was it any other elements that kind of played itself out from the 6-year-old event that happened? Anyway, so here it is, came a journey of numbing through drugs and alcohol for quite many years. So yeah, to kind of like, I'm not going to go into a lot of the details of that, but all of that to say that came into like 10 years of numbing myself through recreational drugs, alcohol, parties. Yes, for sure. There was beautiful relationships. Eventually I got out of that. Oh yeah, I got pregnant. Yeah, forgot that.
Okay. Yeah. That little detail.
That
In the
little
story.
detail.
Yeah.
So I got pregnant at 16 and addicted to heroin. Actually, that's what was with the father that I met at that party. We were deported to Israel. And here I am, completely no parents, no family, nothing at all. And he gets back. He was not into these drugs, but before, yes, but not when I met him in Canada. And then he returns there and drug funds his drug buddies. And basically we get into crazy, heavy addiction of heroin and more criminal stuff and a lot of crazy stuff. So anyway, here I am. He completely abandons me because he has to escape from police and from all these already Interpol looking for him and all this stuff that he kind of opened a lot of businesses on his name. A lot of companies wanted to use him because we just needed money to buy more drugs. So basically, he sold himself so many times in so many different ways. So he escapes and I'm there alone, addicted and pregnant. So anyway, it's quite of a story. My mom pulls me out. His mom finds me. She calls my mom. She pulls me out of that and brings me back to Canada because that was happening in Israel. And so yeah, so with that, I heal. And again, kind of Jesus comes back with the pregnancy, getting over like intense addiction and withdrawal, of course, pregnant with a kid, becoming a mom. But this whole pregnancy really helped me. It was my mom who was, my villain, and then eventually my savior, and my son who I was pregnant with, and the Bible again. What I started doing is drawing all these drawings. I started to draw them like literally, like that was my meditation somehow. And that was the only healing part that I found within the craziness of withdrawing from drugs. So yeah, and but that was healed. Then recreational drugs came in, and again, as I'm saying, partying and so on and so forth. Until, okay, there it is. The accumulation of all that basically landed me on my bed and not able to get up for 3 days. And it's just my body couldn't take in any more toxicity, period. It's just like, so I was like, well, I'm not doing this anymore. I was 27. So that was from 16. Well, I was about to celebrate 27th birthday from 16 to 26. That was what was happening.
Wow.
And not just that, but there was a lot of things. There was like definitely looking outside myself. I had the boyfriend at that time, a 9-year relationship that was an amazing entrepreneur and businessman. And we flew all over the place. And I had the house and the car and all of this fancy things that
Nice
I thought,
things.
nice
Yep.
things that I thought
Yep.
that's it. That's what I'm looking for. And then the only way we could connect is through ecstasy. The only way we could connect is through, like partying, partying. Yeah, I mean, there were some other beautiful elements. He was Italian, so beautiful elements of family gatherings and so on. But for sure, on the accumulation of stuff, and one of those days that I couldn't get up, and I said, no more partying. Like, I'm not celebrating my 27th birthday the way we celebrated for like 2-3 days, not sleeping. So I took a yoga class.
And what? Sorry, it's quite a jump. What happened in between? Why yoga? Why not cooking class, for example, or something like that?
Yeah. So I had this like a year prior to that. I had a few influences that were directing me in that direction. One, I became vegetarian because I had a friend. My father passed away, so I flew to Ukraine to deal with all that. And there was a friend there that was a Krishna consciousness, whatever, advocate and follower, and so on and so forth. And they had a restaurant, a really delicious food kind of restaurant. And so every time I would come to eat there, like these thalis, like the mixed Indian foods with lots of different flavors, he was telling me about veganism and how it's so much better for the planet and all of those things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can resonate with that. So I kind of already like 2026, oh, sorry,
2026. We're in the
sorry.
future already. We're really jumping around in timelines now. Okay, good.
2006, yeah. So I became vegan. Oh, sorry, vegan, vegetarian.
Yep.
And already kind of, had a little bit of the influence of the Hindu tradition and all of that. And then one of my best friends, Sergey, also kind of running away from constant partying and all of that, went to India. And he was already living there for a while, also kind of sending me once in a while some texts, once in a while kind of already that was knocking on my direction. And so I don't know, somehow it was a free. So I celebrated it in this vegetarian restaurant, my birthday, and there was a free yoga class. It was literally a free class. And I'm like, okay, I'll just try it. And that's what I'm going to do. That's going to be my birthday gift. And it just either because I also had to repress tennis at some point, because when we moved from Israel, Canada, it was just for the elite classes with like people with money could continue practice. So I repressed tennis and never did sports. And all of a sudden, the movement and the breathing and just kind of I don't know what it was. Maybe some sort of a remembrance from past life. I don't know. But there was like, oh, this is it. This is what I want to do. Like immediately, it was an immediate answer somehow. But there was no classes. Up until like 2-3 weeks later, they were gathering, people for a class. And it was a Shivananda yoga tradition. And somehow there's always kind of a pull towards tradition. There was always here a pull towards tradition. So I bought some of the books from that tradition, and I guess my luck is that I never had actually a teacher, a physical teacher. So there was always a lot of like, okay, I'll take the teachings and I like scientifically apply them and see what works. So this is what started happening. I bought these books and started meditating by the book. And then I started doing some yoga asana and some breathing, pranayama, and so on. So that became my practice for yeah, I quit smoking immediately because I wanted to get up, because like, oh, the best time to meditate is 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I'm like a little bit intense this way because like that's what I think one of the elements that really helped me to kind of break through this whole enlightenment journey, the same way that I took on the tennis and make it, like really put my 100% there. The same
Right.
way I did with this chasing enlightenment thing. And then I did it with the somatic work. And then now I'm putting it into the business. So I have a little bit of obsessiveness to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of,
But
like it's
also
crazy.
discipline in that
Discipline.
you don't the discipline, and you
Yeah.
don't mind the sort of exertion basically that
Mhm.
comes with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Does that also include that you've always had this sort of would you say that you had the capacity to basically be with the discomfort, or was it more like I don't care about the discomfort, I'm just doing it
Mm.
kind of a
I have a
thing?
huge capacity to be with
Mm-hmm.
discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I have like, I don't know if to call it intensity. So when I was later on, when I
Mm-hmm.
was given like a spiritual name by a specific tradition, I was initiated in Himalayan yoga tradition. So the name that my Devi gave me, it was Anya, interestingly enough. And it's from Sanskrit. So not like the Russian Anya, but it's with
Mm-hmm.
the Y. Anya from Sanskrit is inexhaustible. So I have this kind of energy. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can really like get into it and just put energy, put energy, put energy, put energy into it. So, so yeah, it just like that really helped me, because finally through the meditation or through the asana, I started to feel better. I just started to feel like, I don't know, something that in me started to click into that very subtle sense of well-being. I couldn't put a finger on it, but I
Mm-hmm.
knew if I practiced, I felt better. And so there was also so much I've started to discover. All of a sudden, and books started to flood. Like the first book I read, and it was autobiography of a yogi, and I'm like, oh shit, here's Jesus, not Yogananda specifically, but all these yogis, like they
Mm-hmm.
knew, and it's like, oh, it's not just this one guy, like we all that, and so everything started to click, and they left, you know, techniques and tools how to get there. And I was like, oh, boom, the light bulb went on, and I'm just like quitting smoking, quitting partying, quitting from my friends, quitting everything. And till a point where like Alina went crazy, she went into nirvana. So like all of a sudden, from this drugged social butterfly, I went into a monk stage where I just like meditated and just did, my practices. But 2 weeks into it, that's probably what really helped me. I remembered there was like an out of body experience, and just a meditation. So I meditated, I focused here, I don't know, intuitively focused here. And all of a sudden, when I brought myself into the heart area, I was just like, boom, I was beyond body experience. And it was this pure eternity, infinity, and it was home. Dark, 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 but pure home. Like after this, it was maybe a second, but it felt like a eternity, really. And all of a sudden, that initiated. All of a sudden, fear came in, and my heart went racing, racing,
Mm-hmm.
racing, racing. And just all of a sudden, that's triggered a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. And so something started crawling up my spine, and I was reading at that time, obviously everything comes at the same time. I was
Yeah.
reading by Gopi Krishna, Super Consciousness or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
His Kundalini story was a yogi back in the 60s, and it entered the wrong channel for him, and he was in pain and suffering and blah blah blah. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of good things about it. He wrote many, many books. But all of a sudden, I have this preconceived idea. I knew exactly what it was. And I had this idea
Right.
that, oh my gosh, it's going to go wrong, probably without any words. But here, my heart wants to jump out, and it's like heat and cold and heat and cold, and something scrolling up my spine. And I'm like terrified, and I can't stop it. And anyway, at the end, I kind of focused something on my altar and was kind of able to kind of get out of it. But like I was feeling energy everywhere. Anyway, it was crazy phenomenon. I was with my partner at the time, and I run to him and I'm telling him, it's like, you're crazy. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah. And anyway, so that kind of led me to be extremely afraid to go back, to close my eyes, to meditate, because every time I would, like, everything would start again. And and I was looking for help. So basically looking for help. Yeah. In yeah, go
Can
ahead.
I ask you, now
Yeah,
that
please.
you're looking back at this particular bit with the energy, was the experience itself scary, or was what was scary is actually believing the description, or the fear was there because basically you read someone talk about it and their experience happened to be not great, and then maybe, and because of that there was fear that this may be the case for
Yeah.
you, but the actual experience
Yeah.
wasn't. So I'm just curious what that looks like to you now in retrospect.
Yeah. Like both things. For sure, something unknown is extremely scary to the ego, period. Like it
Mm.
feels like you're gonna die
Yeah,
without any even preconceived ideas. But for sure, like because later on I also became a doula, later on, like taking an example of a birth, mothers get extremely conditioned by all these crazy like labors of screaming and suffering and all of
yeah,
that. And it's not like that. I had an amazing ecstatic birth without, like clearing up and just deprogramming all these programmed ideas of how birth should look like.
yeah.
So for sure, there's that element that you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, and that was exactly the books I was reading. It was terrifying what was
Yeah,
happening to him, so I was immediately terrified for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's hard for me now to kind of go back to the actual experience,
Hmm.
but I remember that somehow intuitively, and you're absolutely right. You said something like that there is fear because you don't know what's going on, and this the fear, it's connected to that fear of not knowing, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously
Yeah.
we need to know what's happening. Where
Yeah.
is this going? Like, well,
Yeah.
how is this gonna end? And
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
or whatever, right? So I of course I do remember the terror
Yeah.
initially, but
Yeah.
something happened. I don't know even how that happened, but intuitively, I
Yeah.
kind of knew that it was okay. Like fundamentally, I knew that this
Yeah.
was okay. And
Yeah.
so the more I started to sort of relax into it, as opposed to trying to, my God. Which,
Resisted. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
resisted, which, I mean, literally holding on to like, the sofa, basic, anything stable because I thought I was going to explode or like be lifted off,
Wow.
although, or whatever, So sure, it is really intense, but like I can just see now how it was the fear of unknown and not understanding what was going on that was
Yeah.
actually more scary than the actual experience, because once I
Yeah.
kind of did my best to sort of lean in, it kind of relaxed itself and dissipated on its own. So that was
Yeah.
just for anyone who's going through
Ah,
it, because
yeah.
that those questions about those kinds of experiences come up a lot, especially if you also get a lot of like shaking stuff,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
because different people will also
Hmm.
experience that in
Different.
very different ways. So how so this is happening to you, and it is frightening. So, and you start looking for help. Where do you go for help?
Yeah. Yeah. I went to a few yoga centers. There were not many in Montreal back in the day. It was 2007. And yeah, so anyway, but there's this deep desire to meditate. It's just because I know there's so much more. There's a whole world out there. The whole, all of the world is out there. It's just the
Yeah,
first stage, like, where you really feel like the world is an illusion, right? Those three stages. The world is an illusion. Second stage, only God is real.
yeah,
Um, and then the third one, the world is God, or God is the world. So kind of like that first, like, okay, wow, I discovered so much beyond this veil. I cannot stop right now. So anyway, I found a few, one teacher was a Kriya Yoga, Babaji's Kriya Yoga, and he was not like positioning as a guru, but they were given a lot of techniques. And he said, like, it's just you. What are you afraid of? I'm like, I was looking for a whole, like these are the practices, and this is how you master this, and this is how you do this. And it's just like, relax. It's just you. Like, oh, okay. And I guess when we were doing practices with the group, slowly, I was able to relax and can meditate while feeling that some energy is still in my spine, doing their own thing. And slowly, exactly what you're saying and what you said is the formula, period. Whether it's you given a birth, leaning into, whether you're somatically working on repressed emotions, it's like it's not the resistance to or the pushing away or like letting go, like I want it out and disappear, but it's leaning into it, into letting go into it. So yeah, it's just exactly that. That was the formula, and I became pretty much a worshiper of Kali. I named it as Kali because what started also happening on the external, the relationship ended, which was beautiful in so many ways, but our paths kind of ended. And so other things started to end. There was a lot of endings. And basically what started happening, it was like for my kind of interpretation or symbolic representation of that, it was like Kali was chopping all heads of all other desires, like out of my life to just keep this one desire in place. And it was just this one desire that I was constantly committed to that returned me to the cushion, that brought me quite like 3 times in 3 years to India, eventually brought me to Ramana Ashram, that the teachings of slowly, the energy was ascending. There was a lot of experience of like deep meditation that started to come in, spontaneous practices that kind of got remembered of like meditating on the inner sound of silence, the kind of inner buzzing. And it's basically building concentration. Through concentration, you eventually, like if you are able to maintain focus for like about 8 minutes without distraction, you shift from ego state, which is just a horizontal left brain operation, and into your right brain or whole brain being here now. So it's very palpable. So, but that started to happen again and again and again. And it got initiated in Himalayan yoga tradition, which is very powerful, of Swami Rama. It's the similar practices with meditating with the mantra. So constantly was reciting the mantra with that inexhaustible energy that we were talking about earlier. So I just became a mantra pretty much, like I was overriding any kind of thoughts with just constantly repeating the mantra. And it started to open up like ability. My whole body became in resonance with some of the teachings of Ramana or Nisargadatta. I didn't know what non-duality was at all. Like I couldn't understand it. But it was just like you read a sentence and all of a sudden the remembrance comes. You read another, paragraph or Ashtavakra Gita, some of the direct pointing, and the remembrance started to happen. So anyway, kind of that led me to Arunachala, to Tiruvannamalai, and that's like 3 years into the journey of the ascension of the energy. And I think what helps, if for anyone listening here, if anyone's going through these experiences of awake Kundalini, I feel like one of the important elements is to kind of commit to truth, because that will eventually, you don't need to do anything. I didn't need to do anything. I didn't need to sit and like really become obsessed with it. It just became a phenomenon that knew its trajectory, that's going to do its transformation, whatever needs to be done. And it did it. So in 3 years, when I was in Tiruvannamalai and Ramana Ashram, one of the meditations, I was sitting there, still reciting the mantra. And this thought came like, okay, why are you, you came to know what you are, to feel what you are. Why are you covering it with sound? And okay, put the mantra down. And um, and it was just like, okay, I know I am. I had so many experiences. How do I stay what I am? And just boom, by grace, it was just the whole thing shifted. The whole thing stopped and became a thick ocean of isness. It was just phenomena. And I don't know. I don't know how much time we have, but I'll run quickly through it. And so the realization was so clear, like it's always here, and it's just always is. And and basically it stayed for a while, like this kind of a state. So, yeah. And I mean, the journey is long. There's a lot of beautiful experiences that came with that. But again, the ego came back dressed up as everything. And the only thing what fell away is seeking. Seeking fell away. But spiritual seeking fell away for sure. The seeking of like, oh, what am I here to do in this life? Like, what is my profession? Where do I live? Like this constant, because the constant uprooting through my childhood kind of continued operating within my system. The inability to, because I got withdrawn into myself, so still the inability to socialize was kind of there. Here and there, I could have some spiritual conversations one-on-one, but never in group. In group, like I would be literally choked by terror, and like almost like a PTSD reaction that later on. So anyway, long story short, like Adyashanti kind of also helped me with his teachings. And a year later, not seeking, I really wanted to again go to Arunachala, but ended up in Mexico. My responsibility.
Okay. I love the geographical part of this journey. It's pretty astounding. Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, so my son back in the day, he was 13. The one I will give birth at 16. So he was 13 and he went to live with his dad. His dad kind of went all the way around and healed himself and everything was fine. He had another family and he went to see him. So when responsibilities fell off, just for even like, whatever, a month or 2 months or 3 months. And my partner at the time, the father of my last two kids, he went to work for 3 days. And so I was left alone without any responsibilities. And so that's when there was this deep, deep, deep craving to meditate and just meditate the way, not the concentration way that I used to do, but like this expansion way that happened in Tiruvannamalai in near Arunachala, it's just this remembrance, this relaxation, this being, everything. And Adyashanti with a couple of his recorded CDs really, really helped. And so I meditated and basically got absorbed in meditation. But what brought me here, it's also the inner lies. Like I couldn't, here I love my partner so much. And here he has no visa to go with me to travel to Costa Rica. And I hate him and I want to separate from him and da 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 da. This chatter in my head. I'm like, fuck this shit. I can't deal with this anymore. And I literally begged for truth. I went to the mirror. I looked because I knew this is it. And I looked into myself in the eyes and with tears, like crying, I can't take these lies anymore. And I was literally begging for truth, and nothing but truth. And boom, I was just absorbed in meditation for 3 days, again and again and again. And until something cracked on the inside. And all of a sudden, the sound of the dogs and the sound of the birds and lots of sounds of trucks, because it's Mexico, is really loud, and kids playing. All of a sudden, all of that became it. Whatever it is, just this mysterious it. And so then I had a spiritual honeymoon that Adyashanti kind of describes, like 2 months of just pure samadhi, and Alina was completely gone. And it was just like love, making love with love. And it's just, everything was it. It was like the air on this hair. So it's just like, okay, it was absolutely blissful and absolutely divine. And it was just like consciousness was literally making love with its content, with creation, with energy. And it was just, I don't know. Anyway, so anyone who was coming was also being absorbed. My partner came back from work, eyes terrified like this, just by presence, and then him calming down and just sitting beside me. So I spent a lot of time in tiny little church in Playa del Carmen, just sitting there. Anyway, all that, but then long story short, coming back to from Mexico to Montreal. And my son coming back, everything coming back, all the familiar roles coming back. I'm like, okay, how do I keep this? I'm like, no, I can't be separated anymore. So anyway, it's just like, so it started to show itself. Oh, okay, it's just because you believe there is a felt sense of separation. It's not a separation, but it's a felt sense of familiar separation when you get believe root thought like I know, and when you kind of attach to it, it's just that's where the split happens. So it started to show me all these things, and the state stayed. I was afraid to talk about it. I was afraid to, like, if anything, I do anything, I'll lose it. So I was stuck in awareness for a while, for 2 years, until this ecstatic birth, home birth of my second son happened, and the journey started to come down. So it was up and out, and now it started to come down, and that's where, like, oh, I came back to square zero, where all the fears, all the traumas, all the shit that I was running away from, and initially I was like, oh, okay, all of that. And I'm not saying there was no freedom. There was tremendous freedom of the level of the mind. It was quiet, it was peaceful. And yet my heart was still probably closed, and my gut kind of was still in this frozen fear. And so the embodiment journey started. And what really, really helped, it was years of, not years of constantly looking, but years of engaging in the somatic modality of emotional repression work of Scott Killaby, called Killaby Inquiries. Now it's called emotional repression inquiries. And it opened up so much, and all these stories that I forgot, and all the being human, the real human mess, this real human mess, as beliefs like I have to believe I'm, you know, inadequate or worthless or uneloquent enough. There was an ability to teach for years. Like, now I'm 16 years into this whole transformation journey, shifting the spiritual honeymoon and the state staying. I'm 16 years behind that. And only now I'm starting to really teach. It's just that how long it took to clear it all out, to really clear it all out and truly, truly embody the voice and the realization and the human body fully free to be authentically, unapologetically itself. So.
Yeah. When we started talking about your journey, you talked to me about the camp. I forgot the name of the camp. And one thing that really stuck with me was that something really massively impacted you at the time.
Yeah.
But you didn't know that. It's almost right, because it was completely repressed. Was there a point, or when was the point at which you actually first of all remembered, and then realized the implications and the impact that that particular event had on you?
Thank you. Yeah, it was very, very important element. And I was pregnant with my second one, so about 2 years after the shift. And as I'm saying, slowly started to descend. I was in from a culture course, and outside in nature, was beautiful, beautiful environment. And basically, I had to present. We were all little groups preparing some material for the not the test, but it was just the project that we were doing together. And I was supposed to present it with a group. And all of a sudden, again, I'm in front of people, because for me it was something that happened. It was in front of a lot of kids and adults that were laughing. I'm not going to go into details of the event that happened, but it was extremely, extremely humiliating and literally crushed my ability to speak or to be a kind of like a center of attention in group settings. So as soon as we started to present, like, this tears started rolling again. I'm unable to speak. So I literally ran into the forest, and I started to scream into the forest, like, what is this? Like, show me. And all I'm hearing, nothing yet comes, but all I'm hearing, like, a 6, 7-year-old girl, I was 32, not a 32-year old woman crying, but literally a little girl. And again, I'm like kind of still screaming into the forest, show me, what is this? And poof, poof, just like all these images and all of it, literally all of it, excuse me, came back. like all of the images, all of the emotions, all the sensations that I just had to completely repress out of my system, they all came back. And so I actually didn't know for a while what to do with it. There was like maybe a year or two or three, maybe a year or two, that I was still kind of trying to heal it. But I observed few things that I was doing. Because it was so surprising, what I innocently did, I identified with that story. And so every time I would talk about it, oh, I can't speak or I can't yet teach because, I'm working on this. I have this issue that I'm working on. So that was be my girlfriends that I would talk to. And so I tried like different modalities, like tapping, a few other things. And I have tried to push myself. I really pushed myself to teach meditation. And I was going there terrified, absolutely terrified, like to a job I hate. And I had to like use the breathing technique, Ujjayi Pranayama, and teach it to other people so that I can calm down my nervous system from like, and find an ability to even put two words together and forget about speaking from presence. My body was like completely like, hijacking the whole thing. And so, but after doing the breathing and so on, like the ability to kind of channel and be there and lead meditation and obviously tap into the field with such potency started to immediately show up. Oh, okay. So it feels like I'm finding the right thing that I'm meant to do. And yet my body is like kicking and screaming, on its way to do it. And so that eventually led me to find somatic inquiry and self-inquiry and with KI, Kiloby inquiries. And I became a training I trained because of the confidence. I was running away from myself. Basically, I became a mom, then I became a mom again. So I constantly was just like, like finding nice ways out of like fully coming into my power and into my voice, honestly. And so here I am, third child and playing a mom. And eventually it was the COVID, because I led the meditation groups for maybe half a year, but then I ran away and everything just stopped and ran to the beaches of Mexico, really. And to be a mother, I'm like, okay, I'm meant to be just a mother. That's my role, that's what I told myself. And then eventually I came into the training and I thought I was coming to gain confidence how to lead people in somatically deeper into themselves. And what I discovered there, that I'm nothing, that I'm nobody, not nothing in the greater sense of nothing, that it was so familiar, but the nothing as a human being, and the tears and all of that. I had shame. I didn't know I had shame about awakening in my system. This first imprint on me when the awakening, the shift happened, the awakening happened, and there was so much presence. It seemed like Alina was away and not here, but the reaction of my partner and his eyes of fear embedded like a shame, a sort of fear of this state in me, unconsciously so. It's crazy, unconsciously so. And my inability to grow while he was around and really step up was that okay, already we have a reverse polarity relationship. If I step up unconsciously, I didn't even know I was believing all this stuff. I unconsciously, the story was that if I step up into my power, I will be even more so polarized in our relationship. And here we are, have two small children. This has to survive and all of that. It's fascinating what we carry around, even unconscious to awareness, right? And it's really through these deeper tools to dig in and to uproot everything. And so that consciousness can be like, oh, shit, this aha that can unglue from the attachment and the aversion to our trauma.
One of the things that's been so fascinating, just looking back on my own journey, is just how resistance works in mysterious ways. You know what I mean? And how the mind is such a trickster. It's unbelievable. And what's been even more unbelievable is just seeing how actually the deeper you go, so to speak, or the farther in this process, the subtler that resistance gets. And it also like disguises itself in all sorts of ways. And so something will look like even the leaning in, Alina, it's like I could, and again, I could only see that in retrospect, where leaning in became a strategy for a moment to actually get away from. Let me lean in. Let me like feel this for like 5 minutes. Okay, so maybe it's gonna go away, right? I mean, it literally like it makes me laugh now, but it was just unbelievable how I was like fooling myself. Obviously, not I was fooling myself. It's
Yeah,
literally the
yeah,
workings of the trickster that the mind is that I'm speaking of, right?
yeah.
And then, once that sort of collapsed, and so I basically saw kind of through that whole mechanism of resistance. This is at least how I kind of refer to it,
Yeah.
because I can't find a better word. And all the strategies and all the different ways, resistance
Mhm.
works. I just saw even the awakening and non-duality and spirituality, that it provided so many escape routes, from just meeting the experience as it is.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
It's astounding. Like on the surface, it will look like you're like we're doing all the right things, and it's like whatever. But actually, the
The subtleties,
the
right?
the direction is always to get away. The direction is not to feel. The direction is, how do I not
Yeah,
basically,
yeah, yeah.
how do I not feel
What
this?
can I do
And
so it disappear?
exactly. So I'm just curious, now that you're looking back at your own
Mhm.
journey. Have you spotted any bits and pieces as to like how even the awakening, or maybe even certain shifts, served as a way to actually bypass or actually
Mhm.
avoid feeling certain things?
Oh my gosh, big time. And not needing to go too far. I'm working with this energies every single day because I
Mm-hmm.
work in somatics, and I
Mm-hmm.
was so fascinated about it because all of a sudden, you know, all of the direct pointings that, over the years I've heard or experienced in my own way, uh, and the inner intricacies of this trickster that you're talking about all of a sudden became so absolutely clear under the lens of experimenting with the inner world. And these modalities, these inquiries, is just really shining the light on the unmet needs that are still playing out. So there's like, so I started to call the ego, not just this ego as an entity, that we need to kill or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's literally,
Yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it's literally body mind survival mechanism.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yep.
And it has so many tricks to keep you in that frozen in time state internally. And it's going to do everything in its power, to really bring us into that same misery, to be identified with that same misery, and not to
Mm-hmm.
by any bit to grow out of it, because there's the unknown, there is the unfamiliar, there is the danger, and so on. So it's like it showed up in so many ways, like just the recent one, because it's still, there's obviously, we're human, right? So there's always gonna be the next depth or the next expansion or the next depth of evolution. So the last one, I was thinking I was going through middle life crisis, and it was from like 40 or 41 up until I'm 45 right now. Yeah, 45. And so up until maybe a year ago, yeah. And it was like this energy. And I thought it was, oh my gosh, I discovered an element about myself. That's me. I'm like that sexual person and this and this and
Mm-hmm.
that and
Mm-hmm.
all of
Mm-hmm.
those things. And then I'm like looking back, and it's just like, whoa, there's this whole element that had to be lived out, that was really resenting itself as a part of my character. True character is something that I was repressing, or something that I was, but it was just like such a trickster. It was just literally driving me around and needing, it was really needed. It was needed for me to experience and let go of some deep shames, deep humiliation that I had,
Yeah.
deep some sort of a still energies of manipulation, especially when it comes to other sex, like an intimate relationship. So that was seen. So there were some other elements that really needed to be exhausted. I don't remember right now, but I was just like, and then when you get out of that bubble, all of a sudden you go like, oh shit, oh wow, what a ride, what a ride. And of course, like I'm more like in that kind of extreme, like I would just say yes to whatever wants to emerge, and so that I can exhaust it, so that I can see it, so that I can live it consciously, right? Whatever it needs to, whatever needs to happen. Just recently, it was still trying to get attention, man's attention, or whatever. It was just like playing that role. I'm like, whoa, I'm just
Yeah.
watching it, and right now I'm like completely not in that state. Not because of, I'll be fine with the relationship. I'm outside finally for the first time in my life. My last 2 years, I'm not in a relationship because I was constantly jumping from one into the other, into the other, into the other. And so this energy, I want to be seen, therefore I'm not. First it believes that I'm not seen, therefore I'm not wanted, therefore I'm not loved.
Yes.
And it relates
Yes.
obviously to my mom, and so it shows up in any intimacy, in any relationship. So it was just like, whoa, finally it like let go of its grip, because it's been seen and caught and seen and caught in action again and again and again. And then it's just like, okay, I'm done playing that. And it's such a relief for the first time in the last 2 years of my life that actually I can focus on just creative, that same energy, because it's also sexual energy and it's also creative energy. And all of a sudden, I tell people right now, I'm like in this creative diarrhea, birthing academies and businesses and different forms and different expressions. It's just like, wow, so fascinating when now it's no longer hijacked by this trickster that you're talking about. They still needed the love and attention of
Yeah.
others.
The other thing that I'm curious, now that you're working with different people, and I'm assuming with people at different points in the journey as well, um, what are some of the biggest struggles, or where's the biggest stuckness uh,
Yeah.
that you have observed by working with different people?
Yeah. So the big one, so I work with people who are looking for awakening, but also mostly for healing and inner peace. So through
Mm-hmm.
somatic work. And so a lot of people, the issue is that I've seen over the years, no matter what you're looking for, what you're seeking,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's the issue is that you believe that there's something wrong with you. And so that's one element. And of course, you can start seeing that. So you can start seeing the stories through the inquiry. And it's the unmet needs, the attachment to the victim identity. So it's
Mm-hmm.
basically it's so subtle. So it's the constant. It's like this double bind. It's the constant pushing away the trauma
Mm-hmm.
because we don't want
Yep.
to feel it. It's uncomfortable. It's like we have thousands of different numbing technologies right now to get away. So
Yep. Oh yeah.
so yeah, so right now, so it's that this compulsive behavior to numb ourselves is the pushing away of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this one element of that double bind, the victim identity, and the other one, when we kind of look deeper and start digging, we're actually extremely attached. So there's this attachment to the suffering. There's a deep familiarity and a deep attachment to stay repressed, to stay small, to stay invisible, to stay, like da 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 da, the ugly one and the, not successful one and the worthless one, and so many, So it's like if it's not seen, so there's this dynamic that's very, very clear when you start digging. That's one thing that really keeps people in place. And that is like a pure self-sabotage mechanism. It's like almost
Yeah.
like an engine to self-sabotage, because one is like in self-sabotage, it could also look like this: internalized pressure to be different, right? And then internalized also in deep inner resistance to it. So it's constantly, it's like pushing full on the gas pedal, driving forward, and at the same time pushing full on the brake.
Or the
So
brakes.
it's always doing that. And that's why the tension, that's why the inner tension. Another element, when we dig deeper into the repressed emotions and into the deficient identities first, because that would be the first layer to get to. There'd be resistance to see, to look, and then we're going to find the deficient identities and all the stories that we believe about ourselves. And obviously the vulnerable energies, it's very energetic. So it's these younger vulnerable energies that are kind of shocked and frozen in time. And then when you go through that, what you find, there's also repressed emotions that we don't even know. In my case, with my voice being repressed, was repressed anger. And like, not anger as like being angry at the world, but like rage, like backbone, like confidence, like my ability to speak up so other can listen, my ability to say no, not because it's a learned boundary, but no, it's a pure protector of integrity. So it's like that was completely repressed because my mom was so angry. So I said, probably at some point in my life, I said, I'll never be like her. And my command with anger repression was avoid anger by all means. So it was always playing 24/7, not to me, not unknown because it's all unconscious, but it was always repressing, repressing, repressing. And so this emotional repression, and underneath within that, there could be, vulnerability repression, meaning the her anger and my fear deprived us of connection. And eventually, this unmet need that you find inside also the repressed emotions, kind of this package, this unmet need is actually just craving that connection. And so when you go through and you can step up and regift your 9-year-old, 16-year-old that anger or that ability to stand up for herself, and from there, the ability to express that need, like, okay, like stop, like to my mom, stop. Like anger doesn't belong here anymore. Like, let's just talk, let's connect. So it's like all these places that we can regift. I feel like that's a lot of that keeps people overcompensating in the mind, creating stories and living with that noise, constantly escaping from feeling. So it's kind of like somatics, it's a little bit twofold. We kind of can land and become embodied before we even awake, and through the process of clearing the shit that we're constantly resisting, and able to learn how to fully surrender, and of course see the intricacies of, are you leaning in to get rid of it, or are you leaning in because you're truly curious to fully meet it as is?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like in a nutshell, that's pretty much, I think that's your work, and that's the work that I do. I mean, because purely because life showed me that at least, and again, everybody's journey is different. There are tons of different approaches. You've done so much of the traditional way, and that had its place at its own time. And so, I'm literally the last person to ever say, this is the right way and this is the wrong way or anything like that, right? It's just there are different stages and different needs depending where we're at. But like the split that you're talking about, I said this is like so common because it doesn't matter how profound the awakening. It doesn't matter that it's not true. It doesn't matter that you cognitively know that this belief is just a belief or this is just a thought, if the body is still very much operating from that belief, right? And so there is literally the split between the head sort of and say the awakening often the way it's spoken about, and again, it's not a criticism, it's just, it does sound complicated. It does sound like this, all these stages and all this, the mechanics of the different of various shifts, and all of this is really, really fascinating. But I feel like sometimes it's almost hard for some people to believe that it's all way more simple, the actual simplicity of it all, right? And that it really comes down to meeting fully what is, basically, you know, and it's very simple, but when we start seeing the layers of resistance that makes it so hard to actually do that, right? And to me, that's the journey. That's the journey. It's just right. So, and it's really fascinating. Like yesterday, I can't explain this how I see it because I don't know how I see it, but I was doing the embodied processing session with this lady, and I could literally see how her body, like the resistance in the body, was like if the resistance in her body had legs, and here was the thing that needed to be met, right? The pain or shame or whatever that was. The resistance was like, okay, I felt it. Okay, yeah, okay. I think I'm that. No, that was lovely. You know, like I was like, yeah, I felt, you know, a bit of emotional release. Okay, that was met. I cried. Okay, goodbye. You know, it's
Done. Check.
check. You know, and it was like it was hard because I saw it and I couldn't. You know, it was like the childlike me just wanted to kind of giggle at that because I just saw it so obviously. So I heard her say what she had to say, and I'm like, okay, now let's go back. But can I go? Can we go back for like a little longer? You know, and it's just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary how much it's not the actual experience that is scary, but the stories about it. Even all the labels, the fear, the anxiety, the shame. You hear these words, and immediately the body goes like, ooh, right?
Just the anticipation of feeling or going into your trauma is much more painful, much more terrifying than actually meeting what's there for you to discover. When it's whatever, if we really relax and able to meet what's there for us to discover, it's actually quite blissful to cry. It's quite blissful to release. It's just very fulfilling to have that finally a backbone to express your anger in places that it was missing, or to even feel fully the shame and the humiliation and just be compassionately there, fully receiving all of that. It's just fascinating. When I always say it's when existence itself, right, the field of isness itself is almost like really intimately making love with its content. And so that is the ability to merge, right? So it's not just standing there beside that shame as you're describing, but it's really letting go, letting yourself in one into the other. And then when the two can meet, that's the alchemy, right?
Yeah. That's how that sense of separation dissolves.
Yeah.
Through the intimacy with the actual experience, no matter what it is. But I have one more question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because there's other side to this that I'm curious about that only recently has been coming up. The somatic inquiry, the different modalities. There's something that I've been noticing, which is almost like a compulsion around this with some people, and um, an addiction to the actual release. To almost like a addiction, maybe it's too big of a word, but you know what I mean. It's like a addiction to the experience of release, basically the emotional release that happens, because obviously for many people this will be followed by some kind of almost a blissful kind of experience or something like that. What I found fascinating is that, again, the person is doing the right thing, is doing the somatic inquiry, you know, it's doing this to meet the experience, but actually what it's after is the release. So the experience is still not really fully met. I think you know what I'm talking about, even though I struggle to articulate it. So did you come across this phenomenon? Let's put it this way. Yeah.
Yes. In healing world, I've seen loops and loops and loops, people taking retreats and 30 years, 40 years, healing. And okay, so for me, I'm like, okay, the somatic world is missing actually the non-dual world. The somatic world is missing the coaching. They have to, okay, stop working on yourself, get out, start living your life. whatever is it you're afraid of, go and do it. So now again, the transcendence without the body piece, which is somatic, is also just halfway. And so what I find and what is missing is the kind of like the integral way of all. And I think Ken Wilber also kind of spoke about that. So it's like, okay, there's the waking up, there is the clearing up, and there's the growing up. And he talks about it. It's the similar that what I observed, a little bit different language and a little bit different development of that, but that's what is missing. And for sure, I see that. And it's that same. It's not just the release, and it's not just the addiction to the release. It's like a new identity, a new belonging, and a settled identification that there's still something wrong with me. Therefore, I need to heal.
Yeah.
So for sure, the phenomena exist. I would say whoever's been on the wagon for many, many years, I would say check in with yourself. Like maybe in this case, don't even go to spirituality right now. Just go and live your life for like, I don't know, a month or 2 or 3. Disconnect from healing. Just find what brings you joy, period. Just find, find other modalities that can get you out of your trauma mind, left side, and get into your creative, effortless playfulness, right side, brain living. And so just doing that will snap you out of the constant treadmill of trying to heal yourself, because you're doing it from a wrong place. That's all.
Yeah, and that would be another belief that I come across often, where I need to clear all the trauma. I need to heal, and then awakening can happen. And it's like this whole idea that there even is something like unfavorable or favorable condition for awakening, is that's just another belief, right? Because if you are on the journey and if you are seeking, every condition at any point, any moment is literally the condition. It's like it even sounds crazy in that sense. Like what I'm trying to say, like every moment, as Pema Chodron is saying, is a vehicle for awakening, and it really. I've seen it so many times now that I've seen the evidence of that, even people awakening without seeking, people dropping seeking after the 20 years of seeking, and now an awakening, like after they dropped the actual seeking.
And how did that sneak in?
Exactly.
Well, and so busy seeking.
Right. Which is why, I will continually say that like every journey is unique, which is why I'm not a big fan of like generalizing as to how this is supposed to play out, because everybody is different. There are different stages and different needs. And it's such a contextual, individual kind of a thing. That's it. I'm so glad that I mentioned this, because I think I didn't get to talk to anyone about this actually. This particular bit with where the healing itself becomes a kind of a trap, even though it looks like it's the right thing to do, or like
even though I build a whole business around it,
or build a whole business around it,
it's still needed. But here are the subtleties. Like, can you combine all three? Like, and it's like, so it's not just, how would I say, it's not just another way to dress up and draw a line in the sand. When I'm there, when I finally there, then my life will look different. I would say it's like, it's moment to moment to moment. So it's like, it's doing what we're afraid of doing. And yet it's meeting all of those, terrified energies, little childhood energies within us, with compassion, like fully, like that merge we were talking about, that intimacy we were talking about. And it's also knowing you're beyond all of this, So it's very, 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 very important, all these elements, so that can be, fully awake and fully human and playful at the same time.
Yeah. Thank you, Alina. I know that there's like multiple avenues that we could kind of
Yeah, let's
walk
do more.
through, and it's very tempting. I can tell you that. But I really
Beautiful.
enjoyed this conversation, and I really appreciate you sharing this story with my people, and
Yay.
and I hope that something resonates for each person in your story. And I really love to hear about your work. I love to hear about what you do. So where anyone who'd like to work with you perhaps can
Mhm.
find you.
Okay. So I have, well, right now the two websites are being built because I'm kind of transitioning for it being about me to
Hmm.
it being an academy.
Hmm.
So, but very, very soon, probably in a couple of weeks, they can already find it or get on the waiting list in on in www.soulfire.global. So it's
Hmm.
soulfire dot global, where everything, all my work will be my work and just work of others. And I have a whole directory of facilitators, really powerful facilitators um, that facilitate somatic sessions. We have a circle. It's this by the same name, Soulfire Global in a circle. So there is a community there. There's like lots of free classes. I meet every other Thursday and facilitate people with what is called a somatic journey and also transcendence journey.
Hmm.
Every other Thursday, have it's free, and I have free meetings for women's circles. Super powerful to be really raw and really real, and to be really held and to be really seen in a really human way, as well as with lots of presence. They're holding all of this unconditionally. So there's plenty of things to engage with. So I could be probably right now found also on Facebook as
Hmm.
Alina Panteleev. You'll probably have some of
Hmm.
my data
Yep.
there. So reach out, connect, and there's a lot of things to play with.
And do you do one-on-one session yourself still or not?
I'm pulling out of that as much as I really, really love it. But I have other facilitators that work with that. I work with groups right now. So I have a very powerful, like a spiral program for women as well as for men. It's called Women Unbound. And it's like literally taking women from repression into soulful expression and into financial freedom. It literally
Hmm.
has like 5 programs within one program. And it's a lifetime entry. It's really embodying and mastering the somatic toolkit, first and foremost for oneself. And then later on is teaching facilitation, and there's certification pathway so you can make it into a career. And then later on, you have access to my business blueprint. You can become uh, in the marketplace, which is the directory. You can be a facilitator within the directory. You can also take it into becoming a training assistant and a trainer and lead your own groups eventually. So there's a whole growing pathway
Right.
for women and for men to implement to be able to grow. But yeah, I work in more in groups right now. I do have a few clients. But mostly I really found a new way that I really, really love to express myself. And it's just kind of more innovative, creative builder, director,
Yeah.
creating this beautiful worldwide academy, global academy. So,
Brilliant. Sounds very exciting. So I'm
yeah.
going to leave all the details in the description for anyone interested in checking Alina's offerings. And thank you everyone for watching. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Maggie.